We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Vavam and Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 86b. And the previous Amud, the Gemara said that a kinyan meshicha, it only works on something which cannot be lifted up. But if the item can be lifted up, if you can do a kinyan hagbah, so then you have to do a kinyan hagbah, and meshicha will not be effective. And the Gemara is in the middle of bringing proofs whether this is true or not. And the Gemara says, Tashma, coming here, proof from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Hamocher peros lechavero. If somebody sells produce to his friend, Mashach, if he pulls, velo madad, and doesn't measure it, kani, it's a good kinyan. And so here you see that a kinyan meshicha is good on peros. And so the Gemara asks, peros divnei hagbon, you know what, peros, produce is something that it can be lifted up. V'katani, dekani b'meshicha, and yet it says in the Mishnah that the kinyan of meshicha works. So you see that kinyan meshicha works even on something which can be lifted up. And the Gemara says, and here what are we dealing with? Bishlife Ravrave. The Mishnah is talking about large bundles. They actually cannot be lifted up, and that's why the kinyan meshicha works. But the Gemara continues, if so, let's look at the end of the Mishnah. It says, Halokech pishtan mechavero, somebody buys flax from his friend, Lokanachi taltalenu, mimakam zel makam acher. It's not a kinyan until he moves it from this place to another place, which essentially means that it needs to be a kinyan hagbah. And if we're talking about hagbah here, atu pishtan b'shlife ravravi milo avdi, when it comes to flax, don't they put that into large bundles? That also could be large bundles, and yet suddenly over here you're able to lift it up. And the Gemara says no, it's not true. Shani pishtan, flax is different to mishtamid, it slips. What the Gemara means to say is it slips, and therefore you don't put it into larger bundles, you keep it in smaller bundles. That's why specifically flax is lifted up. But the peros at the beginning of the Mishnah, those you're doing a kinyan meshicha because it's large bundles and you cannot lift them up. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina said to Ravashi, Tashma, coming here a proof from the Mishnah in Meseches Kiddushin. Behema gasa niknas b'mesira. It says that a large animal is acquired through mesira, that's the giving over of the reins. V'hadaga, but a small animal, b'hagbah, so you lift up the animal, divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar as well. V'chachamim omer, and the chachamim say, Behema daka b'meshicha, when it comes to a small animal, you can acquire the small animal by pulling it. And so the Gemara says, V'habehema daka, debar hagbahi, when it comes to a small animal, that is something you can lift up. V'katani, but yet it says in the Mishnah, according to the chachamim, dekani b'meshicha, that a kinyan meshicha does work. You see that a kinyan meshicha works even in a situation where you're able to lift it up. And the Gemara says to that, Shani behema, it's different by an animal, the sarcha, because it clings. It actually is difficult to lift up the animal even if it's small, and that's why a kinyan meshicha is effective. And the Gemara continues, Rav Shmuel, Da'amri Tarvayu, Rav and Shmuel, they both say, Kor b'shloshim ani mocherlach. If the way the seller phrases it to the buyer is he says, I'm selling you one kor for shloshim, for 30 sela, so then yochol lachzor bo afilu b'sah achrona. If they haven't measured out even that last saw, let's say they measured out almost the entire kor, but not the last saw, so still it's possible to renege, it's possible to retract on the sale. However, if he phrases it as follows, Kor b'shloshim, I'm selling you a kor for 30 sela, and then he adds sa'ah b'sela, every saw I'm selling for one sela. The idea is that one kor has 30 saw, so every saw is for a sela, he adds that part, ani mocherlach, that's what I'm selling to you, so then already rishon kana, then every saw that he gets, he acquires it at that moment, because what we essentially say is, every saw that is measured out, the buyer acquires it at that time, and then he owes him one sela per saw, and the total will of course be an entire kor, that's going to be for 30 saws. So essentially Rav and Shmuel are saying it depends how you phrase it. If you phrase it and you break it up in that manner where you say the words sa'ah b'sela or something along those lines, so then we say rishon kana. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof, and this is from the Brisa earlier, Im haisa mida shel echad mehen, if one of them owns the measuring utensil, let's say for example the buyer owns the utensil that they're measuring out, so rishon kana, as it goes in, he acquires it, v'afagav delo nisma lahamid, it sounds like even though it isn't completely filled, still as it goes into the container he acquires it, and so that seems to be true in all situations. It doesn't matter how it's phrased. That's the question of the Gemara, and the Gemara answers no, it does depend how it's phrased. Kegon da amar le, the case in the Brisa happens to be that he says to him, hin b'shneim asar sloim lug b'sela ani mocher lach, he says one hin for 12 sela, every lug is going to be for a sela, that's what I'm selling to you, so he does phrase it in that fashion. That's why we say in that case rishon kana. Uchadamar Rav Kahana, it's like Rav Kahana said, Shenosos hayu behin. Rav Kahana said in a different context that they had markings on the hin so that you knew as it was getting filled filled up how much was going in. Hachanami here also will say the same thing. Shenasos hayu b'midos. In the measuring utensil, there were these markings, and so you can see as it's filling up every single lug, you can see, and again we're going to say Rishon Kana. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof from the following Brayso, Hasochres hapoel, if somebody hires a worker, Lasos imo lagor, and he's working for him in the harvest season, Hayom b'dinar, and every single day he's going to get paid 1 dinar, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph.